The Big Ideas platform is a thought leadership initiative that's been developed by the School of Politics, Policy and Governance, which is an unconventional school that's designed to attract, develop and also produce a new generation of political leaders who will listen and serve the new class of citizens who know their rights. The Big Ideas platform aims to promote dialogue, collaboration and action to address the present challenges faced by African communities.
Welcome to the Big Ideas Platform podcast. On this episode of the Big Ideas Platform podcast, we speak with Chine and Chuba Ezekwesilis. Their big idea is centered on mindset redesign, a conscious approach to living that prioritizes mental sanctuaries, emotional well-being, and intentional rest. Their idea challenges societal norms by emphasizing that balance, gratitude, and peace of mind are not signs of weakness, but tools for resilience and long-term productivity. Chine is a visionary artist, designer, and philosopher committed to promoting wellness and sustainability through design. He holds a bachelor's degree in sociology from Boston University. This academic background lays the foundations for his expertise in visual storytelling, creative strategy, and intentional design. His education, combined with a strong personal philosophy centered on mindfulness and responsibility, informs his approach to building thoughtful and sustainable design systems. Chuba is also an artist, a designer, and economist and environmentalist. Chuba holds a bachelor's degree in economics from Claremont McKenna College in the United States. He also earned a Master of Arts in International and Development Economics from Yale University. These academic foundations equip him with the knowledge and insights to blend economic policy, design thinking, and sustainability in creating forward-thinking solutions for African communities and beyond. So our conversation on this episode centers on redesigning the mindset. I've got two individuals, which I've just introduced to you, who will talk us through what it is and how it can basically advance the African conversation. So let's just jump right in. Chine and Chuba, thank you both so much for joining us on this episode of the Big Ideas Platform podcast. So let's just jump straight into it before we dive in. So what do you mean in very broad terms? What is a mindset redesign?
So we found an analogy that works very well for explaining mindsets design. And it comes from the world of technology. You have the hardware and you have the software. You know, just like your computer, right here. It's hardware, but it's got software. And often you're going to get a reminder to update your software for your laptop. And the updates makes your laptop faster, you know, perhaps like the battery lasts longer, hopefully. But it's meant to make it better, it's meant to improve it. Humans are the same way too.
Interesting. Where then is the place for authenticity in the identity of a person if I'm going to constantly upgrade my operating system, my mindset? Where does that leave who I am, my core beliefs? Because there are certain parts of me that should remain as they are, without, shifting and compromising other parts of who I am. How does that work?
I think that's a very great question. The best way to see it is it's not that you're particularly changing the core of who you are, but that you're refining it. So that change is actually a refinement. Okay, so you're essentially evolving yourself. Everything in reality is actually designed to evolve. Energy is designed to evolve, and everything is made out of energy. So everything goes through cycles of evolution. And so the only people who generally do not align with that cycle of evolution that nature shows us is human beings. Human beings are resistant against change, but change brings refinement. And so the ability to actually just refine one's own self leads to a greater version of self. It doesn't lead to a lesser version. It leads to a more conscious version.
I also just want to add back to the analogy, right? Just because you're updating your computer system doesn't mean it changes the computer system. You don't update your Mac and then get a Windows.
Yeah.
It's still a Mac. It's still a Mac OS. The operating base is still the same. All you're doing is you're making modifications, removing some code and adding some other codes to it. And that is refinement versus complete.
Interesting. Thank you for that. So basically my core remains the same. The way I do things becomes refined, becomes better. Are we ready to redesign our mindset as a continent, as a peoples? How?
Extremely difficult.
What's that journey like? What's it going to take for us?
I mean, for one, the cycle of life always shows that the people are not always going to remain. There's always going to be new people that show up. So one of the things we are particular about is focusing on those new sets of people, because then, just like a computer, the operating system is still pretty blank. And if you can install the right code, then you don't have to worry about trying to update something that doesn't want to be updated. Anything that doesn't want to be updated is eventually going to
be obsolete.
Yes.
Yeah. So essentially, you focus on the new generation. So two things: new generation and also what we call the fertile minds.
Yes.
So they are individuals among a particular generation that have the minds that are willing to accept this new updates. So there's some computers who you check the specifications and they are willing. They're like, oh, you can actually update it to this new OS. Whereas there's some systems that are just like, no, you can't. They're just too old. You can't update them. And so in a couple of years, they're going to be obsolete. So the focus is, what are the systems? What are the computer systems that are willing to accept this new update to the operating system? And also, how are we ensuring that the new computers that are being designed, created, are actually created with the new operating system already in them? So essentially, how do we educate the new generation that's coming up with the new mindsets that we want to put in them? So we don't have to start convincing them down the line. Instead, already from the get-go, they're already functionally operating in that new system.
How easy is it, or what's it like trying to put out this idea? Because I'm thinking in terms of education now. How do we move this conversation along further, given the circumstances in which the target, that's the young, fertile mind, exists in?
I think the answer to that, we're going to find a recurring theme as we have this conversation. And a recurring strategy is always focus. Focus matters. Where we focus our energy matters. And I think focusing on focusing on the right people, right? The most fertile minds and the young minds, but then also focusing on the creation of spaces that facilitates the education of such minds is essential.
It's absolutely important.
To create new curriculum, create new structures, create new experiences, right? But then also show the value of what's different. And if you can show the value eventually, then it's an incentive for people to say something's different about this and something's working better than the normal or than the old. So we must adapt to the new.
All right, let me come back to China. I'm going to ask the very first question I asked in a certain way. I want to get your thoughts on this again, your perspective. What led you to consider a redesign of the African mindset?
Just the knowledge of our history. Once one is aware of their history, one is then aware of why they are thinking the way they are thinking in the present, and also how they're going to be thinking in the future based on that history. And I think once one looks at the African history, one finds that there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of pain, colonization, slavery that has taken place there. And you see, when something like that takes place to a system, it's essentially has put a virus in there. What colonialism, what slavery did to the African history or to the African system was that it ensured that it was hijacking the system towards essentially like mining bitcoins. And it's okay, so in a technical way, they're viruses that use your computer to actually mine Bitcoin for somebody else.
So they basically use your computer's resources
to make money. Yeah. And so that's the same thing that slavery and colonialism is. It's making use of your own hardware and your own software towards actually enriching another. And the only way that that happens is if that computer believes that bug, that virus is actually a future. So it doesn't think of it as something outside it. It thinks of it as like this is normal, this is native, this is my tradition. You know,
It's accepted.
Exactly, it's
It's
accepted.
culture.
It's culture. So a lot of the things that we believe are culture for us or traditions for us are actually vestiges of colonialism. And just growing up in a society like Nigeria, one thing was obvious: something was broken. Something was broken. And so that was what led me to study sociology, because I wanted to understand what's broken about the society, why is it broken, and then see.
And what did you discover?
That it was intentionally broken.
Okay.
Very intentionally broken.
What is the
By
it?
design.
And can we break free of these shackles you
the
refer to?
mindset essentially is intentionally broken. And it's very intentional, because if you can alter the mindset of something, you can alter the behavior. Every action that takes place comes from there. So essentially, let's put it this way: the colonizers do not have to be in your continent or your country to control you. It becomes remote control. They've designed your mindset, so they know how it is that you're going to function. They know that you're going to have a thirst for things that are imported, and so all they have to do is just focus on getting your raw materials and resources, refining it, increasing the price, and selling it back to you. So they are aware of the system, and then they're able to actually alter its behavior. And so in terms of the behavioral changes that system is making, it's going to be altered to what they want, as opposed to what's best for you as an individual or us as Africans. And so just that understanding that we're not existing in our original state. We're actually existing in an altered state, means that there's then the drive to say, okay, what does it look like to fix this? What does it look like to take us back to a better version of our original state?
I think over 50 years ago, Robert Nesta Marley sang Redemption song, Emancipate Yourself from Mental Slavery. Are we still literally shackled like that? This is 50 years down the line. Can we ever break free of those shackles? Chuba?
Yeah, absolutely. I think variables have changed over time that make it possible. You've got the internet now. It's very different before, because one of the key things to mindset design is also knowledge availability.
Sorry to interrupt. You talk about the internet. Isn't that also a double-edged sword? Because it's
Oh, it
also another
is.
tool to introduce another form of, conditioning. Let me just put it this way.
But you see,
Are we strong enough, resilient enough mentally to resist any other new conditioning that is being introduced that way?
But you see, it's a double-edged sword, right? So we'd like to, again, focus on the side of the sword that is beneficial for us. And I think if you can find the people who are able to navigate the internet in the right way as a tool that can be useful, then it completely changes the game. And if you have the internet, then it means you have knowledge. And if you are intentional about the application and use of the internet, then the way you use the knowledge will be productive. The challenge then becomes, how then can we train people to become more intentional about using the tool? So the tool isn't bad. It's the way we train them to use it, back again to the mindset redesign. So if you can train them in the right way, then that gives us hope for a more knowledgeable generation. And we're already seeing it. Like you have like the Gen Zs and the listens, and of course like they can also be ignorant in their ways, but they're also very vocal. They're also very learned. Like they will ask questions more than all the past generations. And you see, we can't have mindset redesign without people who ask questions.
I consider it to be a mark of intelligence.
Yes.
Right, let's come now to mental sanctuaries. It's a term that not many people are familiar with. How does that sit with mindset redesign? How does one go about designing? Is it possible to design a mental sanctuary? How do I go about doing it? And what does it stand to do for my mindset redesign? Chine?
Yes, mental sanctuaries are absolutely possible. And they're possible because we created an actual sanctuary, a physical sanctuary. And this is where it all began. Is that we have a studio in Jabi, and in 2020 during the lockdown period, Chuba and I spent every single day gardening, and we transformed the pure concrete walkway into what is a Garden of Eden now. Yes, it's an
You're
absolute.
invited.
Yeah,
I'd love to say it's not too far from here.
yeah, it's not. Yeah. And that process of doing that taught us something very important. It taught us not just how to transform a physical space to a more beautiful space, but also the mental pathways through which we were doing that. And so that showed us how to mentally actually change our own self from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. The same process through which we created the garden was the same process through which we could actually redesign the mindset of the mind or create a mental sanctuary. And so what does a sanctuary in essence mean? A sanctuary means a place that is of peace, of love, of joy, a place where you feel safe.
Yeah.
Beyond doing this in the physical space, because there are places where you go to and they carry that feeling. But when as a person you do not feel internally at peace or at joy, no matter where you're at, like, yeah, it will have an effect, but still, if your internal being is not at peace, nothing else matters outside that. And so the need was to ensure that we're not just designing spaces that brought a sense of peace, of love and joy, but that we're also able to give people the tools to make themselves the sanctuary themselves. So even when they were outside of a sanctuary, even if they were in the depths of hell, they could still find sanctuary within themselves.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. How do you personally protect your mental sanctuary? Let me come to that. I'll throw the same question to you as well, Chuba. So you got the upper hand. You can start thinking of your response.
So you actually find that the response is the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've created the process of creating this garden led us to this framework. So when you spend so much time in nature, you just learn the lessons of nature. And nature basically is always a sanctuary. So it just teaches us its lessons. And the first lesson was to slow down. So whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever nationality, race, creed, tribe, ethnicity, whatever you want to call it, gender, sex, everyone can always just learn to slow down. And if everyone slows down, that's what creates the mental sanctuary. So that's the first step, slowing down. Mm-hmm. And the second step that nature taught us was to give gratitude. And remember, the steps I'm listing, you will find that they're also very psychologically backed, clinically backed, like steps, right? Giving gratitude has been proven and shown to improve happiness and increase, longevity of life, and improve relationships, give a positive outlook on life. And then you have finally taking responsibility. And taking responsibility really is about taking action.
Now let's talk about slowing down and finding balance in this hustle and bustle called life. How possible is it to really slow down and not get swamped by your bills or the landlords chucking you out of the house?
Yeah. I think for starters, when it comes to slowing down, there are many forms of slowing down. And it's about finding the form of slowing down that is appropriate for the context that you're existing in. Well, one of the most important forms of slowing down that we suggest to people is just taking time to...
As easy as breathing.
Yeah. It's the freest form of slowing down.
It is. It's free. And all it takes is just a couple of seconds. The landlord that is trying to chuck you out of the house, like, they can't stop you from just taking in a deep breath. But you would find that just the ability to just take those few seconds and take in a deep breath actually is able to recalibrate your mind. It's able to put your body at a greater sense of ease. And that sense of ease leads to you being able to make more intentional and rational decisions. You find that it's when you slow down that you can actually see more things. See, one of the things that we believe and also teach is that life is a game. But you see, if one is not slowing down to play a game, they're never going to learn the lessons in that game. They're never going to see the advantages in that game. But the ability to just slow down to take a deep breath means that one is able to see, hey, okay, my landlord is about to kick me out. But wait, I remember that I have a neighbor who had actually, talked about starting up a business and that he needed an accountant. But back then I was fine. But now I actually remember this, so I can find him and we can have a conversation now. And all of a sudden, that person has a job that can pay for that. You find that slowing down leads one to see that in life, there is actually always the opportunity that they need to resolve a situation that they are facing. It's consistent.
Interesting. All right, we'll go on a quick break. And when we come back, Chine and Chuba will talk to us about a collective adaptation of their big idea, what we stand to gain as a people, as a continent, and much more. More of this when we come back. Stay with us.
The Big Ideas platform is a thought leadership initiative that's been developed by the School of Politics, Policy and Governance, which is an unconventional school that's designed to attract, develop and also produce a new generation of political leaders who will listen and serve the new class of citizens who know their rights. The Big Ideas platform aims to promote dialogue, collaboration and action to address the present challenges faced by African communities.
Welcome back to the second part of my conversation with Chine and Chuba Ezekwesilis. We're talking about redesigning the mindsets. The first part was very, very interesting. If you missed that one, please go back, rewind and start all over again. I certainly will do so after this conversation is over. Right, let's come back now to balance, finding balance, work-life balance. How possible is it to attain a good, healthy work-life balance under these conditions?
Probably going to take us on a little bit of a tangent, but when people say work-life balance, I think there's for workaholics like me, I think it's hard for you to remove work from life.
I'm not alone.
So work is a part of life, right? So we like to sort of call it like sort of work-play balance. Like what is, you have work, but then you also have like play. Sometimes work is also play for a lot of people, right? But for a lot of people, they struggle with it because work really means work. And a lot of times work means work that they don't necessarily enjoy. That doesn't give them drive and doesn't give them a sense of purpose, a sense of direction. And so we're kind of just, as you said, like just competing and just trudging along every single day, just doing the barest minimum, trying to just survive. And that's really extremely difficult. So you see, one of the things that we also understand is it's not enough to just have a framework for a mindset. The environment, the culture around the mindset matters. So you need a culture that supports that mindset. And then you also need an environment, quite literally also physical environment that supports the mindset. We'll give an example. We just came from DC 3 days ago, and when you see the infrastructure, the public infrastructure for the most average person, from the beggar to the richest person, you can see that they have an environment that's designed to facilitate the kind of work-life balance we're talking about. But when the environment is different, it is extremely difficult to have this strong sense of work-life balance, especially when you do a 9 to 5 and then you probably close. If you're in Lagos especially, you close from work maybe 5, 6 o'clock, and then you're in traffic for the next 2 hours, and then you get home and then you have to probably cook food or like take care of the children. It is extremely difficult to have that work-life balance. Like, it is extremely difficult. But you see, one of the things that is really important is finding the pockets of time. If you don't find that time, just the pockets of time in between to just slow down and say, okay, I need to really strategize and think about my life, people remain stuck in the same situation again and again. So it's the same game, the same level all over again. But if you can take out the time, that's a privilege already. But if people can, we always advise as much as possible, try and do so. If you can't, back to Chine's point, just start with finding a moment. I really truly believe there's no one who just for 1 second cannot just pause and just stop and just breathe in and breathe out and just recenter yourself. You're probably going to go back to the same madness, but now at least you've gone back a little bit refreshed than you did just going on to the next thing. It's kind of like, think about it like a marathon. It's a difference between running and then stopping and then pausing and then resting and then running again. versus just going all the way like straight up and then passing out. So how can we just build in break times into our lives in ways that are very non-disruptive to the work we have to do, but enough to actually power the work that we have to do?
Interesting. You use the words there, privilege. How possible is it, to actually, where do you find the time? Where do you find that pocket? That's the question. Let me come to Chine for this.
Okay. And that's a good
Where's
question.
my pocket?
Where's
Is it
your
in
pocket?
the hold up?
Your pocket. And you can actually use the hold up as a great way to find the space to slow down. You find that, and just focusing on hold ups now, and he has experience in it. He lives in Lagos, so. But in terms of hold up, just being in a hold up gives one a chance to actually become a lot more observant. And the act of slowing down to actually just observe, we find, is actually very therapeutic, because then you're actually just observing as opposed to pondering on problems. You're looking out the car, you're seeing things that have messages attached to them, you're seeing things that can speak to you, you're noticing changes, you're actually seeing and giving yourself a chance to abstract yourself from thinking about the problems towards actually just seeing the things that you would not otherwise notice or observe. And that's fundamentally great in terms of how it helps a person just slow down more, because the act of observing more helps you slow down more. Once you can slow down more, you observe more. It's a cycle. So a hold up should never be wasted. It's an opportunity to actually just observe more.
I got a very specific example of this. I have a blog on behavioral economics of Nigerians, and half of the blog was written in a Danfo bus on my way to work every day. Like maybe this is 2014 time. And so I just spent time just looking at people and just observing what's going on. And there's one titled, The Economics of I Know Get Change, for example. So of course that's also still, if someone is thinking about the work that they have to do and the boss is going to, really harass them once they get back to the work, it's difficult for them to still properly have the time, space to do so. But the times when you are stuck, those kind of periods are really indeed periods for one to slow down and reflect. And if you can leverage that, you realize, wow, I actually have more time than I thought I did. We don't realize how a lot of the time is spent doing the things that are non-productive. Even when we believe we don't have time, if we really slow down to audit our day and say, okay, what did I do in this time, you just outlined that, right? But you will find that there are pockets where you probably just like picked up Instagram or Twitter or something, and that took like maybe 20, 30 minutes. And that time can be reallocated to something just more productive, where you said, okay, should I apply for a new position tomorrow? And that could have just been the breakthrough that was necessary.
Interesting. I'm definitely going to be doing that. Okay.
Yeah. Also, just one more thing that actually helps is before switching tasks. So right now, you mentioned a bunch of things that you have to do. What does it look like to actually just say, okay, I'm about to actually switch into a new task. I'm just going to take this time to take in a nice deep breath in and out, and think about, okay, the thing that I'm about to do right now, what is it? And what am I trying to accomplish? Just that act of doing that actually brings a greater sense of clarity and actually enthusiasm towards going into it, as opposed to just, okay, I'm done with this. Next one.
Yeah.
Next one.
Yeah.
Next one.
Yeah. And then even when you slow down to think about what you've just done and what you've accomplished, and you're giving gratitude for it, right?
Yes.
That gratitude gives you energy to take responsibility for the next task. A lot of people get burnt out because they're not slowing down enough to say, oh, wait, I've done all of this stuff. They're just thinking, what's the next one? What's the next one? What's the next one? That's exhausting, mentally and physically.
Wow. Now, I want to come now to a collective impact. What's it going to take for us to propagate this message so that we hit a critical mass of people within our space, that we can physically see these differences that will hopefully encourage more to join up? What do we need to do?
Well, for one, what we're doing now is one-way media. Just getting it to the ears and eyes and more people is an effective way. Media is is only growing in Africa. More people are having mobile phones and smartphones and devices. So you're no longer tied to a TV. No family needs this big TV. So media is really an effective way to democratize the spread of knowledge. So media is definitely one. Integration into curriculum is another one. Education, another one. Another one that we do as well is when we work with organizations, we use this framework as really the framework for engagement, for how we communicate in the team. When we build ventures, the framework is at the heart of the culture. And we found that if you can create sort of this nucleus of individuals who come together and are driven by a particular framework, it creates a certain kind of culture. And that kind of concentration is powerful enough, because tomorrow those individuals leave to create new ventures. Then the same culture is going to be spread across the ventures they create.
All right, as we come to closing now, I'd like each of you to leave one after the other, leave the people following this podcast with one daily ritual or mindset shift that will help them hopefully in moving forwards. We'll start with you, Chine. One daily ritual.
One daily ritual. Okay, so I think I'm going to start with a ritual that I adapted from the framework. So the framework is slow down, give gratitude, and take responsibility. And so out of that framework, I adapted a ritual where before I do anything new, I tell myself, everything that I do with ease. Everything I do with joy. Everything I do with focus. And I find that whenever I repeat that mantra to myself, it helps me become a lot more mentally aware and present in that situation.
Okay, Chuba.
Wake up in the morning and ask yourself this question: what am I grateful for? Yeah. And then just write it down, journal about it. So get a journal, notebook, it could be an app, and just start with what am I grateful for? And just get that boost of energy that begins your day in a positive light.
Interesting. So how do people get in touch with you if they want to further their knowledge of mindsets, realignment, redesign?
Ezekwesilis Twins on Instagram. So Eekwesilis Twins on Instagram.
And framework of intention.
Excellent. Well, it's been a very interesting conversation with you both, one in which we hope will carry far and wide.
Yes.
Thank you both so much for coming on the Big Ideas Platform podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the wonderful questions and conversation.
The Big Ideas Platform is a thought leadership initiative that's been developed by the School of Politics, Policy and Governance, which is an unconventional school that's designed to attract, develop and also produce a new generation of political leaders who will listen and serve the new class of citizens who know their rights. The Big Ideas Platform aims to promote dialogue, collaboration and action to address the present challenges faced by African communities.